Welcome to the Snapback Life podcast, where resilient women come to reclaim their power, heal from trauma, and step into their most authentic selves. I'm your host, Jacinth Dada, your snapback from trauma to triumph life coach. And I'm here to guide you on your journey to healing and empowerment. In each episode, we dive into personal growth, overcoming adversity, and building a life that reflects your true potential. Stick around until the end for some exciting resources and opportunities to further your journey. Let's snap back and thrive together. Hello, hello, hello. And it is a beautiful day, and I just want to welcome each and every one of you to the Snapback Life Facebook Live with Jacinth Dada. This is awesome. Last week I missed not having the live, and that was intentional. But before I go into that, I wanted to just pray and hope that your day is going well and that you are in the best health ever as far as mind, body, and soul. So, yes, it's good to be back on our Snapback Life. It's been an awesome week. It's been awesome. It's been busy. But in all things, we are grateful. So, guys, last week I was intentional about not doing our live because I was away on a little vacation, you might want to put it, just some R&R. And it was good that I decided to do that. I met on a cruise with, it was 22 of us to celebrate one of my cousin's 60th birthday on the Princess Cruise Line. Never been on that cruise line before, but it was awesome, and I really, really enjoyed it. So when I knew I was going, my intention was R&R. And yes, I did get some rest and recovery. So as I was preparing for our live today, that's one of the things that I wanted to discuss. Our discussion today is going to be based on rest, the benefits of rest. I don't know about you, but I believe that as women, there's so many responsibilities that we have that if we are not careful, if we're not intentional about taking time out and pause, then a lot of times we set ourselves up for burnout. So for today's chat, we're going to talk about the benefits of rest, and not only going to bed and sleeping at night, but just overall rest, because there's some benefits to rest when it comes to our physical body, our mental state, and also our spiritual state. So I don't want to be long today, so I just want to dive in and talk about, the benefits of rest. I'm very excited today to spend this time with you, ladies. And this, as I said, is a crucial empowerment discussion. And we're going to not only talk about the benefits of rest, but some action plans that we can get into, some things that we can do, we can incorporate in our lives that would help us on the journey of being intentional about resting. There's a power that comes when we rest. So life, ladies, can be sometimes life is overwhelming, especially, when we're dealing with challenges. I'm trying to adjust myself here. When we're dealing with challenges and the busyness of life. And as we're coming towards the holidays, believe it or not, in less than a week, we are entering to Thanksgiving and Christmas and the New Year. And those are the moments or the seasons in which we tend to just add more things and more responsibilities to our daily lives. But I want us to be encouraged today to know that we have a responsibility to ourselves, and not only to ourselves, but those that we are responsible for, those that we love, to make sure that we are taking the time that is needed to rest. Rest, in my opinion, is not a luxury, right? But it is something that must be done. It is necessary for us to heal and for us to be restored. God's promise of restoration is not just about healing, but also about realigning ourselves with his original plan for us, his purpose for us. Because if we're not in a position of rest, right, then it's very difficult for us to be able to fulfill our purposes, whatever that purpose is, whatever that assignment that God has given you. So notice, right? And I think it was in August of this year, I did talk about the power of rest, but here I'm going to do a little twist because I just want us to be reminded that rest is pivotal. It is vital for us, especially as women, right? That we are intentional about that. And I love the word restoration, because if you look at the word restoration, to be restored, you have to be rested, right? So the first word that you can extrapolate from the word restoration, it's rest. True restoration requires intentional moments, ladies, of pausing, reflecting, and recharging. So today, as I said, we'll talk about the physical and the mental and spiritual benefits of rest, how it plays a vital role in our recovery, right? How it plays a role in how we show up. So let's just explore that today, right? Let's explore how rest can help us snap back into alignment, not just surviving, but thriving in the life that God has called us to in this end time season. So let's first look at the physical benefits of rest. I just want to say thank you all for, joining me today on this live. And I'm praying and I'm hoping that when we're done, that you will be empowered, you will be motivated and encouraged to be intentional about rest. Right? So let's first look at the physical benefit, one of the physical benefit of resting. So rest, as we know, is essential to our physical health, right? Because we know the body heals while we're resting. The body heals while we're sleeping. When we pause our bodies have the innate ability to repair and recharge, leading to increased energy. Not only our energies are improved, but our immune function, right, is increased. And we have overall wellness, right? Lack of rest often leads, ladies, to us being exhausted. It leads to burnout and even chronic illnesses. And I want to pause here for a moment that, being in the health field for almost 40 years, I have a little experience on even seeing patients when I worked in the adult arena, that a lot of the chronic illnesses, right, that we tend to have or we see in healthcare, hypertension, diabetes, fatigue, and migraine headaches, and even obesity, right? A lot of those disease processes can be improved by the way we take care of our bodies, by the way we care for ourselves as far as resting, the way we eat, right? So a lot of those, diseases can be improved, and sometimes we can eliminate them from our bodies, because when we don't rest, then what happens to our bodies sometimes is that our bodies increase in that inflammation. So we go through that inflammatory process where that is the leading cause, research shows, the leading cause of a lot of our diseases that we see: hypertension, diabetes, obesity, migraine headaches, chronic fatigue, are increased by inflammatory processes, right? So it's not only the foods that we eat, which is a major part, but it's also taking time to rest our minds, rest our bodies. So we can do a lot of things that will eliminate some of those chronic health issues that we have. So here are 3 things that we can do, and we'll talk about that. One of the things that I wrote here is scheduling time, being intentional about sleeping 7 to 8 hours. And we know that the research shows that our bodies need at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night, right? And we must prioritize that. I don't know about you, but that is something that I struggle with, being able to sleep sufficiently. And sometimes I have to be intentional. A couple of years ago, I went to my gynecologist, and when we sat down and we were talking, she said something to me. She said this. She said, everything looks good. You know, your pap smear, everything is good. And then she asked me a question. She said, how is your sleep? How are you sleeping? And at that moment, I realized, and I was honest, that I was not sleeping, 8 hours, 7 hours a night, especially when you're in healthcare or you're in a profession that requires you to work 12 or more hours a day. It's very hard to get the sleep that you need, right? That your body really needs to recover and to heal. So she talked about it, and she said to me that it's very important, right? Because a lot of women, especially when you're young, your body can offset a lot of things. But as we get older, right, women going into premenopausal, some of the things that can happen, we lose estrogen, and now the fatigue sets in. We start to gain weight. Depression and all those things that are symptoms of menopause or symptom of not having rest. And at that moment, I realized, Jacinth, you are not getting enough rest. And I went out, I did some research, and I bought this ring. It's called the Aura Ring. This is not a commercial, right? And what it does for me, and I wear it all the time. This is what it looks like. I wear it all the time, 24/7. And what it does, I have an app on my phone. It tells me when it's time to be prepared for bed. It tells me my sleep pattern, how many hours of REM sleep that I have. And it talks about a lot of things. It monitors my heart and all kinds of things that can help me to be intentional and also make adjustments in my daily life that would, promote rest and healing. So that was one thing that I was intentional about, to make some adjustment and correction when it comes to my rest and my physical being. So whatever you need to do, ladies, it's important. It will benefit you. Whatever you need to do to begin to make adjustments in the way that you're sleeping, in the way that you're pausing, to take those moments of rest so that you can be restored in your health and physically in all points, right? So sleeping is a priority. It's not an option. That 7-8 hours of sleep, it should not be an option. And while I'm talking about this is something that, as I said, I am always trying to make adjustments, right? And then the second action that we can do to improve our physical health when it comes to rest is incorporate activities, right? Like stretching, yoga, or simply taking 10-minute breaks during your day to stretch, to relax, to do nothing, right? These are some of the benefits that we can have when it comes to our rest. And number 3, commit to unplugging from electronics for at least an hour before bedtime to promote deeper and more restorative sleep. My hands are up. My hand is up. How many of us have issues and have difficulty unplugging from social media, from your phone, from your computer, hours before it's time to rest? One of the things I did this week while I was away for this cruise for 7 days, I purposely did not add internet to my phone. And that's one of the reasons I missed out on our live last week. Because I was intentional that this trip, even though I'm celebrating a family member's birthday and just getting together with family and friends from the UK, I made an intentional decision just to be present in the moment and take that opportunity to, unplug from social media, unplug from everything, right? And just focus on rest and recovery. And it was the best thing I did for myself. It was amazing, right? So sometimes we have to make those decisions that will increase our ability to be more healthy. And it's also a benefit. It's a benefit to us physically when it comes to rest. And the Bible talks about this in Psalms 127:2. I'm going to give you some scriptures to back up what I'm saying. Psalms 127 verse 2 says, "In vain you rise early and you stay up late, toiling for food to eat, for he grants sleep to those he loves." So what the psalmist David is saying here, that we wake up, if this is how we live. We go to bed late, we wake up early, and we're toiling. When he says toiling, that means we're working, right? We're working to earn wages, to be able to eat, to be able to meet our responsibilities. But then he's saying, though, that even in the midst of all that, God has given us the gift of sleep because he loves us and he understands the purpose of rest. Even in the Bible, in Genesis, when, it talks about when God created the heavens and the earth, 6 days he worked, and on the 7th day he rest. He rest. And we see in scriptures throughout where Jesus himself rested, right? And it is important. He set the example for us that we have to rest. And I always talk about this, that if Jesus Christ, the incarnated word, the Son of God, God himself, has to rest, then why is it difficult for us to do that? We have to be intentional, right? So another aspect of the benefit of rest is as far as our mental state is concerned. Rest allows us to reset mentally, not only physically, but mentally, right? It clears our minds. It allows us to wusa. It allows us to just clear our minds of the clutter, of the news, of everything that is going on. It reduces stress. Stress is something that we all experience in life. And in my opinion, there are good stress and there's bad stress, right? But it's for us to understand that stress will ultimately causes us to be ill, causes us to have mental breakdowns where we can't think, we're fatigued, it gives us headaches, So it is such a benefit when we rest, right? Rest also, not only does it decrease the stress levels that we experience on a daily, but it also improves our focus. Because we need to have clarity of thought. We need to be able to think through life with focus, clarity, right? When we are constantly busy, ladies, we can't think clearly. I don't know if you have experienced that, but I've gone throughout my career, I've gone through probably 4 major burnout. So when I emphasize and I talk about the importance of rest and self-care, it is based of my experience, and not only my experience, but what I see over the decades, even with colleagues and people in healthcare, and whether you're a entrepreneur, you own your own business, whatever you're in corporate America, it is very important for us women to be intentional about taking time out to care for ourselves and to rest. When we are constantly busy, we can't think clearly, right? Or make decisions that are beneficial, which can lead to more frustration and anxiety. Taking intentional breaks helps us regain clarity and perspective. And let's talk about this for a minute. I mean, I can tell you this year has been, it's been a whirlwind for me. I had my highs, I had my lows, but there were times that I had to just step back from everything. I had to step back from the snapback, right? Which is a major part of this ministry that I have. And, step back into my own space and in the presence of the Lord to regain clarity. And the only way I could have regained clarity and focus is resting, right? Shutting everything down, because a lot of times as women, especially when you own your own business, you have a career, you have family, and you have so much responsibility. A lot of times we feel like we can just go and go and go. But you find that it is not healthy. It is not healthy. You become anxious. You become stressed where, you're just, everything is a problem because you're not rested, right? So that is the focus, especially ladies, now that we're entering into the holiday seasons. We have to be mindful because the world wants us to be, just rushing here and rushing there. But I encourage you to rest, be intentional about it, because taking intentional breaks help us to regain a better perspective and clarity. So 2 things that I can suggest that we can do. Number 1, practice mindfulness, right? And that means we have to practice being present, right? If you're reading a book, be present. If you're engaging in conversation, be present. That's what mindfulness is about, because because we have so much to do, a lot of times we can think while you're doing something. You can be thinking about, I need to wash dishes, I need to do laundry, I need to, prepare for work tomorrow. And we just constantly go, our minds just constantly focus and go on the things that we have to do. But practice mindfulness or meditation for 10 minutes daily to calm our thoughts. And one of the scriptures that I love in the Bible, I think it's in Corinthians, where Paul says that we should bring every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. So what he's saying there is that our thoughts will go awry, but we have the ability to capture the thoughts. We have the ability to, calm our thoughts and focus on what we need to do in that moment. If it's rest, focus on rest, right? And another thing that we can do, take intentional breaks during work to step away from stressful situation. For me, in my area of specialty, I work, and I just work part-time now, but over the years, I work in an intensive care setting, right? And there are days when I've gone to work and 10 hours into work, I've not peed, I've not drank water, I've not eaten anything. And those are some of the symptoms. Those are some of the way we live and the way we work that leads to burnout. It leads to chronic illnesses, right? So I had to, over the years, after having experienced burnout, I had to be intentional about taking those breaks, taking those moments to step away from you know, the busyness of my career over the and the business of life, right? And another things we can do, write down any worries or tasks in a journal to offload mental burdens and find peace. I call that, mental dumping. And like I've said before, and if anybody knows me or listened to anything that I've talked about over the decades, one thing I talk about all the time is my ability to journal and how important it is to journal, right? Because what it does, it gives us the opportunity to write things down, to get it from here on paper. And you can write prayers, you can write your plan, your future, your vision. You can write what you're dealing with in those moments. And for me, who have experienced different levels of trauma, that was an exercise over the decades of my life that has helped me tremendously. And I've mentioned before that even if you're a person that reads the Bible, you read the Psalms, one of the things that David did, and that's basically what the Psalm is, it's a collection of his thoughts, his experience, his prayers to God, what he wanted to do, how he viewed life. That's basically what it is. And we have the Psalms now as an example that we can use as prayers in our times of rest and even in the times when we're going through difficult things. So the other benefit of rest is as far as our spiritual, and we'll tap on that in a few minutes. But before we go off, I want us to talk about Isaiah 26 verse 3, when the Bible says, you will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you. So when we trust in God, ladies, we can cast all our cares on him, right? And when we put our trust in him, when we're dealing with the difficulty of pausing, taking those moments, we can give it to God. And what happens, he promised, he said he will give you peace. He will keep you in perfect peace when our minds are stayed on him. So when our minds are busy about all the challenges, the trauma, the difficulties that we're going through, the stresses of life, there's no peace. But when we allow ourselves to put our trust in the promises that God has given us, then he says, God promised that he will give us a peace that surpasses our understanding. Isaiah puts it this way: he will keep us in perfect peace when our minds are stayed on him. And when our minds are on God, when our minds are on Christ, there is a supernatural peace that comes to us. So let's talk about the last benefit that I want to talk about today, and that is the spiritual benefit of rest. Remember, we're talking about the benefits of rest, not only spiritually, but emotionally and physically. So the last one we're going to discuss today is the spiritual benefits of rest. Rest is not just physical or mental, right? It is deeply spiritual. God designed rest for us, and we talked about that earlier, as seen in the example of the Sabbath, right? So we know that the Sabbath day was the day that God rests. And when we Sabbath, right, it's not for us to be busy doing this and busy doing that, but Sabbath means to pull away, that we're able to rest. Rest allows us to realign with God, hear his voice, and remember his promises. In moments of stillness, God restores our souls and he renews our strength. There's a scripture in the Bible that I love so much. It said that the joy of the Lord is my strength. And if we do not have joy in serving God, if we do not have joy in his word, how are we going to be strengthened? And from my own experience, I'm telling you, there are times in my life when I feel that I cannot go one step further. But when I rest, when I'm intentional about resting in his presence, you know, the Bible in Psalms 91 talks about he that dwelleth, that word dwelleth means live consistently in the presence of the Lord. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And in those moments, as we are abiding, as we are resting in the presence of God, what happens? He covers us with his feathers, and all the promises that comes in that psalm. You know, he says that he will give his angels charge, command concerning us, right? And even in that Psalms 91, as you go down, he not only promised to cover us, but he promised long life, that he will satisfy us with long life and renew his salvation upon us. And that word salvation means health. It means wholeness, right? So not only does God promise to give us long life, but he promises that in that longevity, he's going to give us health. He's going to give us strength. He's going to give us joy. He's going to give us, you know, peace of mind. So it's very important that as we understand the benefits of rest, that in those moments of rest, God brings stillness. He restores us. And that word restore is to bring you back to your original design, right? Renewing our strength. And some of the things that we can do to you know, rest when it comes to our spirit is, I'm going to give you 3 action plans, right? Number 1, dedicate time daily. And we're talking about the spiritual benefits of rest. So we can actually be intentional about dedicating time daily in the presence of God, whether through prayer, worship, or just quiet reflection. Just taking those pause moments and just rest in the presence of God. Read his word, meditate on his word, meditate on his goodness. You know, there are times when I mean, this is just a natural practice for me, that, you know, I always want to begin my day just communicating with God, just being grateful for just waking up, being grateful for the opportunity to be on the Snapback Life with you beautiful ladies, to have the ability and the opportunity and the honor, sorry, my thing is off, and the honor to just empower you and encourage you on this beautiful day, right? So quiet reflection. Number 2, reflect on God's faithfulness, because he has been faithful, and express gratitude during those moments of rest. There are times in our lives, ladies, that while we pause, while we're having those quiet moments, we need to reflect on where we have been, where we are now, and where we plan to go, right? Because I don't know about you, but I can tell you one thing. I am here now. I'm in health. I am, you know, experiencing the goodness of the Lord, even in the midst of issues, right? But I have learned to just focus on the goodness of God, his faithfulness, his love for us, right? The things that he has kept us from, how he has healed our bodies, how he has healed our minds, how he has taken us from one challenge to the next, right? Without us losing our mind. You know, some of you might have had some health challenges, you know, financial challenges, you know, just challenges that are natural in this journey of life. But when we think about where we could have been, you know, and how God kept us, how he made a way when it seemed impossible. He is faithful. You know, a couple of days ago, I was in the bathroom. I was actually taking my shower, and I was going through a process where I was, trying to decide on something, whether I'm going to have I'm scheduled to have a cardiac procedure. And in the midst of that, I had a trip that was planned probably a year and a half ago. And when I went in on Tuesday after returning, home, I went in for my pre-op visit, and I was told that if I had the procedure, which was scheduled for this Monday coming, that I would not be able to travel because it's like 7 days of bed rest and then about 3 months of recovery, right? For my heart to heal from, the inflammation that will occur with the procedure. And I accepted. I said, okay, I won't be able to travel. But then I started to, vacillate between should I or shouldn't I? And the next day I was taking my shower, getting ready for work. And I heard the Lord said to me, do you trust me? I wanted to share that with you to let you know that in moments of where you have to make crucial decisions, right? Do you trust God to come through for you? Do you trust him to give you what you need in those moments? That moment of rest when you decide, you know what? I'm just going to pause in this moment and listen to what God had to say. I even called my mom for her, just to share with her my vacillating, should I, should not. And she gave me some good advice, right? So I said this to say that in those moments of rest, we can have the clarity that we need to make those decisions that are so important, right? That's a time that we are able to reflect on past blessings, past healings, past experiences when God just came through when you didn't even know that it was a possibility. So another thing that we can do to experience the benefit of spiritual rest is plan weekly Sabbaths, weekly Sabbath, right? A day of intentional rest to pause, to worship, and to reconnect with God. It sounds simple, but for a lot of us ladies, sometimes those moments are very difficult to incorporate in our busyness. And I want to share this scripture, Exodus 33 verse 14. It says this, the Lord replied, and I guess he was replying to the children of Israel. He said, my presence will go with you and I will give you rest. I think this is the what should I say now? This to me is a promise that we can stand on. God promises rest. And even in Hebrew, he said he has given his people rest, right? The Lord replied. And the Lord is saying to you today, ladies, my presence will go with you and I will give you rest. So the rest is available to us when we're intentional about resting. And as we close today's discussion, ladies, let me remind you that when you take time and do nothing sometimes, it is not laziness, right? It is a sacred act of obedience and trust in God's promise to restore us as women. By taking time to rest physically, mentally, and spiritually, right? We allow God to realign us to his divine purpose. Rest, ladies, helps us to recover from past and prepare us for the future. And what do you mean by that, Jacinth? Rest, right, allows us to recover from yesterday, recover from last year, recover from last month. I came back and went straight to work. I think I had a day or so off and went to work. And even though it's 2 days, but it's intense. And so when I rest today, right? It allows me to recover. You have had a long week, whether you're working, running your business, in corporate America, whatever it is that you do, ministers, you work in the church, whatever you do. It's been a week of busyness. It's been a week of challenge for you maybe, right? But when we are intentional, right? And as we're approaching the weekend, be intentional about resting, because it's going to prepare you for the coming week. It's going to prepare you mentally, physically, and spiritually for the coming days. It's vital. So let's commit, ladies, today to prioritize rest in our lives. Remember, it's in rest that restoration begins. We cannot be restored if we're not resting. Take one step this week, even let's say this weekend, right? To intentionally create a space of rest, whether it's by sleeping more. I need to do that this weekend, right? Stepping away from busyness. And a lot of times the busyness that we have in our lives, a lot of it can be, we can minimize a lot of those busyness, right? I got up this morning, and because I was away, I have so many things. I'm looking at my house. I'm like, okay, laundry needs to be done. I need to do this. I need to do that. But I had to pause and said, you know what? I can't do everything today. And that's what we have to do sometimes. We have to be intentional. You look at all the things that you have to do, and you have to decide what is a priority. What do I need to do today? And maybe you can decide, like I've decided today, that it's not going to be a lot happening. I'm just going to rest, right? And there are moments, ladies, that we have to do that. And then tomorrow, or maybe later on today, you have the energy, you have the clarity, right? You have the strength to do something because you were intentional about taking that pause moment, about stepping away from the busyness, or spending quiet time with God. Spending quiet time in His Word, reading a book, watching a podcast. You can watch my podcast on Spotify and also YouTube, The Snapback Life. Okay? Trust that in your rest, God is working to restore and renew you. In your rest, God is working on your behalf. In the time that you're resting, that difficult decision that you have to make, right? That situation that you are facing. When you are intentional about resting and trusting God, remember He said He will give you perfect peace. And in that peace, He's going to give you the clarity. He's going to give you the answer to the question. He's going to give you answer to that prayer, right? While He's renewing your mind, while He's renewing your body, while He's restoring you back to His divine purpose. So ladies, as you enter into this weekend, my prayer for you is that you will take those moments of rest. Thank you for joining me today. I cannot wait to hear how God is using your rest moments to transform your life. Until next time, remember to embrace rest, restore your strength, and step boldly into your purpose. Have a wonderful day, and remember that rest is not a option, but it is a priority. And that life is a gift. Live it well. Hope to see you next time on the Snapback Life. And ladies, remember, visit my website, www.thesnapback.org, where you can see a lot of the things that I'm doing. Also, if you have not purchased the magazine that I am a founding writer, it's called The Oil of Mastery. You can go to my website, thesnapback.org, and purchase the magazine. It is the inaugural magazine. It comes out quarterly. The next issue will be in January. Lots of information, on life. Lots of powerful women and men are writing things in this magazine, The Oil of Mastery. So I encourage you to visit that. And as I've always said, if you're looking for a speaker for your next event, you can contact me by just going to the website. God has great things in store for you. Rest, make it a priority. Ladies, looking forward to seeing you next time on the Snapback Life with Jacinth Dada. Have a great day. Love you guys. Thank you for tuning in to the Snapback Life podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an opportunity to snap back and thrive with us. And if this message resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with your friends, your family, or anyone who could benefit from joining our powerful community of resilient women. I'm also accepting speaking engagements, so if you're looking for a dynamic keynote speaker for your next event, let's connect. You can find more details on my speaking, joining the Snapback community, and all things the Snapback Life at thesnapback.org. Again, at thesnapback.org. Until next time, remember, your comeback is always stronger than the setback.